I mean, I had someone call me at like 2 a.m. Hey, don't believe anything. He's innocent. Hey guys, I'm Shelby. What's up? Welcome to IHOPKC Secrets, episode 1.
Welcome. First episode. I'm Anastasia. I'm 33. I live in New York City. I am a hairstylist, a mom, a wife, and a fun fact about myself, my favorite color is pink.
Pink, that's awesome. So I'm 32. I live in Kansas City. I am dating in the city. I just have a little puppy dog. I've known Anastasia since I was 19, 20, so like over 10 years of friendship. So I'm currently in Kansas. She's in New York. So me and Anastasia were going to this home church that was sitting right under IHOP's teachings,
Yeah.
meaning that we would play their worship music, we would play their sermons, and me and Anastasia were visiting a couple times a year, every couple months. We were streaming the prayer room. So definitely the language of the prayer room, beloved, Holy Spirit, end times was all awakening.
Should we talk about how we met? We met in beauty school,
Yeah.
actually. Mentor. I was her mentor. Shelby was my mentee. And we bonded over the fact that we both thought we knew we were going to marry our husbands at the time. 2009 era.
No, lots of funny memories. We also started this prayer group after do you remember that? This prayer group at the basement after lunch. We would like it was real serious. So we would gather people to pray and it was sweet though. And we were all going to church together. When I met Anastasia, it was the first time that I actually went to a charismatic church, God filled with the Holy Spirit, started speaking in tongues when I was like in between 18 and 19. I loved Jesus at that point, but her friendship was really the catalyst into the prophetic, the charismatic movement, praying in tongues because of you. I don't know if you know that. It's because of you. One night we went to that church in Indiana, like a youth group, and then we went to remember that worship night we used to go to on Thursday nights
Mm-hmm.
in like an auditorium. So
Mm-hmm.
it was we went
Trinity.
to Trinity. So we like layered them. We went to two in one night and I just started praying in a different language. I was like, period. That's what's up. So
Oh, yeah.
we have a lot of history together
Um,
in God.
so I have originally heard about IHOP when I first got saved. I would have been 17, so 2007. I was in high school and I had some friends, and I, became enamored with
Right.
the music that was coming out of there. And 18, 19, and it was pretty formative in the way I developed my faith at that time.
Enamored is a really interesting word. So I have to share this funny memory I have about the first time I ever thought about IHOP. So Anastasia was picking me up. Maybe it was a Barclays night, maybe it was a Tuesday night. Remember, we used to go to those Tuesday night worships in Indiana. So you left your keys in the car. You ran back inside and your music was playing, and it was a Missy Edwards song, right? I had
Hmm.
never heard any of that in my life. So Anastasia runs back into the house. I'm in her car, and I hear this woman go, "In the days of Noah, it will be like, it will be like in the days of Noah." And I'm sitting there in my car, and I'm like, I don't know what she's talking about, but something is on that. Something is on that. And that
Yeah.
is fire. It's truth. It's something I haven't tapped into, but I just remember being like, kind of feeling this urgency of like, I don't really fully understand what she's saying, but that's something I've never heard at the church before.
He was like everything
Yeah.
uh, in such a crazy way. And I think then she kind of became like too much of everything for a lot of people. And we'll get into that, like how the music and different worship leaders became idolized and literally like celebrity culture.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that.
So, guys, we're going to break down a little bit of the journey of how I got to Kansas City from the suburbs of Chicago because me and Anastasia are both from Chicago. So, I graduated high school in 2009. Then I went to beauty school with Anastasia. I graduated in 2010. I was working, I had a boyfriend for about a year. And this is,
Mhm.
you know, it's an interesting point, but I remember people being like, "Yeah, that place is a little weird." Well, do you remember my boyfriend at the
Yeah.
time was, "Please don't go. You're gonna
Oh, I remember that.
it's gonna shift." Oh, did you never know that? Very he was very much like, "You can't go there. It's
I didn't
bizarre."
know that.
But there was something inside of me that was wanting to go, and then
Yeah.
Anastasia went so you went to a One Thing conference, so let's talk about that, and then you came back and told me, "Oh, they have internships."
Okay. So yeah. So it was around 2010, 2011. I went to a one thing conference with some friends from Indiana, and I remember it being the time. I'm like, oh, it's so cool. Had like a central room, and it was just like obviously you could feel stuff going on, and all these
Yeah,
like prophecies, and it was just at that time like I was totally into it. And yes, I was like so impressed by it, but there was something on inside of me that was like something's a little off here. But I didn't know that. Yeah.
right. So you come back from One Thing. I remember this moment. So we're at beauty school in that little room right when you check in and, like, do your hours. Remember that little cubby where you could do
Yeah.
your and you go, Shelb, they have internships there. They have this one called One Thing, and you were thinking about going. You're like, I'm doing it
Yeah.
because you were worship leading at this local house church that we were going to.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very much in IHOP's vein. We were praying in tongues.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
were we were basically sitting under IHOP teaching in Northern Illinois. We had like a little
Yes.
friendship group going on. And it was precious. I mean, that was a precious time. And so you were going to go to One Thing. And then you said, oh, they have this other internship called Fire in the Night.
Yeah.
And as soon as you said it, I remember so specifically, my tummy, it had this like feeling, and I was like, I'm going there. I'm going there. Like, I'm gonna go.
I really did actually want to do that internship. I remember like looking online and all this kind of stuff. And so then I asked my dad and like told him, I'm like, it's gonna be $5,000. And my parents had just got divorced at that
Right.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was graduating beauty school. And so I either going to go back to college or I wanted to go and do this internship. And I just remember being so mad. I was like,
Now, this is very important to point out. At about 2012, IHOP KC was at a peak.
oh,
Like, one of the peaks that it's never even gone back to. Misty Edwards, Audra Lynn, Corey Asbury, Matt Gilman, Rachel Culver were popping off the
mm,
chain worship leaders. The prayer room was always flooded, always busy. People were selling their stuff to get there. They were going to internships. They were wanting to be worship leaders. John Thurlow was also a very popular worship leader at the time. And so if there was a chart of when IHOP was at a peak in the charismatic moment, especially in music and new people coming in. It was definitely around the time I went. It was
yeah.
definitely the time we were visiting. And I think you would agree with that.
And
And
I
it's,
think it has to do also with technology. Like at that point, like being part of like
yeah.
streaming and stuff was just starting to come into like common culture.
When I first got to IHOP KC, the iPhone had been created. It was, but no one
This one,
had them yet, unless you were like,
right,
that no one had them yet.
you have to,
Maybe 10% of the population. I went
yeah,
there with a flip phone and
yeah,
paid $50 a month for my phone bill, and I only
yeah.
had texting and calling. So it was a different time. Instagram had just started like that year that I went.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
just crazy to think about.
Just I have at that point, it's like 2012 peak. It's becoming the most popular it's ever been, and becoming that the most influential that it's ever been. And
Oh, it was definitely a crescendo how I got there. Meaning I would see Audra Lynn in the coffee shop and be like, oh, it's my favorite worship leader. Misty, at this point, just give a little tracking of with her, kind of untouchable, just almost famous, aloof. When you first moved to Kansas City from a different part of the country, you see Misty Edwards, Laura Hackett, Jake Thomas. You see them as celebrities. You really do. It's subtle, but it is the culture there. Now, obviously, guys, we're doing this video so we can uncover what's currently going on at IHOP, and reveal everything. So I will say that Mike Bickle was not really on my radar when I moved there. That was not a prophetic voice that really called me there. Um, it was more so Misty's worship leading and Audra's worship leading.
Yeah.
It stirred something in my spirit, and then I ended up there, obtained the money rather quickly, broke up with I broke up, my boyfriend broke up with me, I broke up with my boyfriend. Next day I go, I'm going to Kansas City. I'm gonna go do the internship. It was very quick. I remember when I had a leader who said, wait, wait 3 months and then go. And so then I raised money, went for 3 months, and I remember I wasn't living with my parents. I was roommates with Anastasia, and I went over to my parents' house and I said, Hey, I remember so clearly my mom was smoking a cigarette, and I said, I'm going to Kansas City. I'm going to go do this, starting internship for a Bible college thing. And my mom just, her jaw dropped. She looked at me and goes, have you have you lost your mind? She was like, what the hell are you talking about? And I was like, I'm going in like tomorrow, so bye. And so
I mean, it's
anyways,
a place to be. It was a place to be
it was the place to
at
be, and
time.
I was so excited. Wait, I gotta mention this. Um, Anastasia, do you remember that one time that we drove to IHOP from Chicago through the night? blasting, blasting Audra Lynn, praying for encounter. And then there's a loud ass thump, like bam, like a bat thump. And we had hit a skunk. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? And you know what's crazy too about those trips where we would drive to IHOP? Is that we would go there. We didn't even really know what the address was. We would literally just GPS to Kansas City. And since I don't even think me and you had iPhones, I remember
No, we
there,
had a giant chunky GPS.
yeah, or there was also those printouts from like Google Maps, and we would
Oh
just
my
do
God,
300
where could you be?
miles. Remember that? 300 miles here, then turn
Yeah,
to
I guess
Iowa,
so.
and then we'd get there and be like, okay, where is it? We would just pull up in Missouri, so excited to be there. Pull up, roll up to the prayer room any hour of the day, and just we were there, and it was like the dream. Like it was almost, for lack of better word, a spiritual magnet. I mean, would you agree? It was
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
radiating magnet to where it's like if you love God, something was drawing you there. Like if
Yeah.
you want to go deeper with Jesus, there's no one else anywhere on the music market putting out music like Misty, like Audra, with that language. And so it was definitely like, okay, we got to go check this out.
Hmm.
I went and I did Fire in the Night for 6 months.
Yes. So went to go do Fire in the Night, and immediately I felt, "Oh, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I had to like rationalize in my head every single day why it's okay to, and I never even went to the school, why it's okay for me to go into the career that I'm going into. And it's okay that I'm not going to this program. And I
Yeah.
had in a form of that, then with a struggle for like 10 years, up until some sort of,
Which is,
am I doing good enough? Which
yeah.
is so performative. It's so performative.
Which hearing that from you now, like 10 years later, it's like, wow. And if you remember, that was a little bit of a contentious time in our friendship to where, like, I don't even think we
Yeah.
talked that much. Do you remember? Because when you first go into an internship at IHOP, it is so severe. It is almost like a cutting off. Let me tell you about some of the things that are required. Let's go through it. Firstly, you get a phone call. You get a phone call, a phone screening. Would you verbally agree? You're not going to drink alcohol. You're not going to smoke tobacco. You're not going to have premarital sex. Okay, fair. We're Christians. But on top of that, you're not going to have a one-on-one conversation with a guy for this next 6 months because you're going to be in consecration. You're not going to listen to any secular music. You're not going to watch any secular TV. You're not going to watch the news. You're going to bubble yourself and can cocoon yourself in the prayer room for 6 months. Do you agree to that? And you're young, you're zealous, you're impressionable. You're like, yeah, that's fine.
Good.
And so when you have friends that one person is like, okay, I'm going to go pay bills, pay my rent, go date, be normal. And then you have someone who's like, hey, like I'm never gonna be on my phone and like we kind of went like this. So it is
Yeah.
beautiful how like,
Yeah.
and we're gonna talk more about that in the episodes to come, or the what we have to come of like how I transitioned out but still kind of there, and how I remained, for lack of better words, normal, and didn't fully come under everything for too long. But I remember coming out of that 6 months going, oh, what movies were released? Oh, what happened in so like you are completely, when you sign up for that internship, you are completely like, okay, I'm immersing myself. And I do remember there was like a time where we didn't talk. It wasn't bad though. I mean, but it was very cocooned. Thinking of the people, the children, for lack of better words, they're not under 18. You have to be over 18 to do the internship. But thinking of the kids who are interns and students now in 2024, while this scandal is going on, is just unreal to me. Your whole life is kind of broken down, very narrow pathway. And to think of people not almost having those resources to the outside world, I can't even imagine how they're processing all of this. It's like I went through the internship without a scandal, and um I was pretty secluded, so it's just like wow, I can't even imagine what the interns are thinking now, or how they're processing it. But it's almost like, Stace, you get too deep into it that if you have someone right above you be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
there was an unsolved there was an unsolved murder, but we're just going to keep going to the prayer room." You're almost like, "Okay, it's just normal." You're like, "Oh yeah, like that's probably the enemy. That's probably Satan." This
Yeah.
is real. This is real.
I think that there are a lot of people that are like this,
Yeah.
that either found their way there, landed, crash landed, went through some of their programs, or were kind of always on the outside going to their events, and then their home churches were kind of, like you said, under their teaching.
We could go back into the internship, back into school, like a different episode. Okay, flash forward. This is why we're doing this. This is why we're talking.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
let's just get into the bombshells.
All right, so now we're here. It's 2024, and all of a sudden, all of these allegations are coming out. And Shelby, what was that first moment that you're like, oh my gosh?
Yeah, so it's actually crazy. So I was driving to my salon suite um on a Saturday morning, and I get a text from my friend, and she goes, "You have to call me. I want you to hear this from me first. Call me, call me, call me." I call her, or she calls me. It's like 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. She goes, "Hey, wanted to let you know this is gonna drop at IHOP tomorrow. Mike Bickle has sexual abuse allegations. There are several Jane Does with credible allegations." And I'm on the phone, I'm on the highway, and I'm like, "Okay, don't don't believe her. I love this friend dearly, dear sister of mine." I go, "Okay." I just couldn't, it bounced off. I was like, "Okay, I don't really know what to say, but love you. I gotta go to work. Bye." So it was a Saturday. That whole day, I was like, "What?"
Mm,
Mike Bickle is 70, I think, close to 70, been married close to 50 years, not really someone who you get the initial impression is having all these girls. I mean, he's kind of like a beloved um
grandpa.
grandpa, not quite grandpa, but definitely beloved father. And so when you
Yeah.
hear something, I looked at the stages of grieving. The first one is denial. And so she tells me that on Saturday. I remember it was around
And
Halloween. It was right
okay,
around
right around
Halloween.
Halloween. Okay, yeah.
Right around Halloween. I had like a little party that night. I had plans, so I just didn't even think about it. The next day, didn't think about it, was thinking about my weekend. Monday, didn't think much about it. It was just denial. Tuesday, I flip on IHOPKC's announcement to the initial allegations. I'm doing my makeup right here at this desk. I turn it on. Stuart Greaves is talking. We have several credible allegations against Mike Bickle. He's not allowed to preach here right now. And I'm telling you, I stopped doing my makeup. I just start bawling, bawling,
Oh
sobbing
man.
like a little child. It's like this spirit of trauma hit me. I couldn't even watch
Mm.
it. I had to pause it. I texted my boss, I gotta come in late. And that's when it hit me. It took like a full 3 days to where I was like, wait, like, what
Well,
is happening? What is happening? So with my friends,
from
girl,
school.
we were texting, talking, phone calls about this hours a day. Hours a day. I was at my salon in between every client, this. I mean, bombshells were dropping. Bombshells were dropping. People were like, okay, who's the Jane Doe? Who's the first one? What's going on? What's this? And it all came through different lenses. Because then for me, that was a time where I was very, very humbled because and I will say this, people have gone through different traumas in their life, right? So I have gone through a trauma that maybe someone else hasn't gone through. And so I personally have never been a victim of sexual abuse in my whole life. So to me, I didn't realize in talking to certain friends, I could come off very callous, very unsupportive, and very almost naive. Whereas, so I personally am adopted. Whereas someone who is not adopted, if they start talking about it, they could talk about adoption very flippantly in a way that would hurt
Mm.
me. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally.
So let me just slow this down a little bit. So if some I've had people talk about adoption in ways that I'm like, "Oh my gosh, do you realize what you're saying?" Like it's not a doggy shelter. I mean, I've had people say it's like picking out a dog from the shelter and I'm like, "Oh, what?" You know, just these things where it's like, "Okay, you weren't adopted. You don't understand how painful that could be." So when I first initially found out about these allegations of sexual misconduct with Mike Bickle, not being someone who has personally suffered sexual abuse, I was like, oh, it's probably not true. The girl probably made it up. And my friends were like, hey, dude, how dare you? Like,
Mm.
what? And it was a really quick type of time where I was like, you know what? I need to humble myself. And this is not an area of expertise for me. It's very interesting, and we can unpack this. Why
Yeah,
am I
because why were you so quick to
why was I
say they're
so
wrong, so quick
no,
to defend him?
it's actually crazy. Why am I so quick to be like, he's innocent? It's made up. And that in it's been about 3 months. I'm at the point now to where I'm like, he probably did this. He did this. I mean, it's not in the court of law. I'm not the Lord. I wasn't there in every detail, but it baffled me for the first 6 weeks of why my leaning was mm, innocent until proven guilty. Whereas my friends who have experienced sexual abuse goes, no, 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 no. The victim is to be heard and validated until he's proven innocent. And so that was a shift for me and very humbling for me. And I actually repented, for that before God of being like, yeah, like why would I? It's just shocking. And I think that no one handles trauma perfectly, and it was trauma. And so your brain, it's more information than your brain can handle at one time.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my first
Well,
dose.
and and like you said, being adopted and going to IHOP and that becoming your family and that becoming like your father figure in a way. And then
Right.
all of a sudden they're being accused of the worst.
Well, it's
It's very
father
traumatic.
figure. It's father figure states, and it's also these are safe people. These are godly people.
Right,
These
right,
are
right.
people that me, and not just me, numerous of my best friends have poured years, thousands of dollars and hours and their whole
Mm-hmm.
hearts into the prayer movement to find out, were we being lied to? Were we being scammed? My first initial thought was, if he did this, he betrayed his own heart, which is deeply painful, and he betrayed all of us. He didn't just betray Jane Doe, he betrayed everyone who gave their time, heart, and money to IHOPKC. And that's what I think is really the heart of the matter. It's so painful. I remember God gave me this thought. I was going to put it on a TikTok, but I didn't want to post TikToks because social media was blowing up. God gave me this thought of IHOPKC was beautiful, but it neglected the heart. It neglected the heart of the people. And that's why this betrayal happened and it hit everyone so hard. Because once this betrayal happened, it shifted everything. Everything started coming up. Podcast. And not just me, numerous of my best friends have poured years, thousands of dollars and hours and their whole hearts into the prayer movement to find out, were we being lied to? Were we being scammed? My first initial thought was, if he did this, he betrayed his own heart, which is deeply painful, and he betrayed all of us. He didn't just betray Jane Doe, he betrayed everyone who gave their time, heart, and money to IHOPKC. And that's what I think is really the heart of the matter. It's so painful. I remember God gave me this thought. I was going to put it on a TikTok, but I didn't want to post TikToks because social media was blowing up. God gave me this thought of IHOPKC was beautiful, but it neglected the heart. It neglected the heart of the people. And that's why this betrayal happened and it hit everyone so hard. Because once this betrayal happened, it shifted everything. Everything started coming up. Podcast, Facebook posts, this person too, this too. And it was just every day was a swirl. Every day was like a new bomb dropping. We had women posting, "I'm not a victim."
That was crazy.
That was crazy. It was like a movie. You had people posting, "I'm not a victim." Then you had Misty doing a post, I
I'm
was
not a victim.
abused. And then you had people who were like, "Misty, thank you so much for speaking the truth." Then you had other people saying, "Misty, don't cover for him." A renowned, beloved worship leader posting this. And then you have people you dearly love supporting her. And then people you dearly love saying she's covering for him. And that was something that still is tricky for me because I have people I dearly love. Pretty much, it was very divided in the beginning, very divided.
Yeah.
Women of God women of God that I've ran with being like, "Hey, Shell." I mean, I had someone call me, say, "Hey," at like 2 a.m., "Hey, don't believe anything. He's innocent." And I remember, yes, 3 to 5 hours a day, fully on my phone, either taking phone calls from people all across the country that this affected and doing my own research. And this is a trauma. This is a trauma. People were exposing people's private business on Facebook, and it wasn't quite at Twitter yet. I know Twitter's blowing up now in January 2024, and we'll get to that. But people were revealing people's secret private sin on Facebook. It was wild. That question of, yeah, I mean, we'll get to that with the statement that he released because he did say, "Oh, I thought this was under the blood of Jesus and dealt with." Do you remember that part of his statement?
Clean conscience. I wake up with a clean conscience.
What is alleged is decades and decades. No confession. I mean, even in his statement, it wasn't really a confession. Extremely vague.
Self-centered.
When did you first hear about it in New York?
This is why I was looking down a lot because I was actually scrolling because I found out from you. So it was October 29th, and you sent me a public statement that came out from Swain Roberts, Brian Kim, West Martin.
And that's what tells me that I was in trauma because honestly, I don't even remember sending that to you.
I've been crying on and off all day, you said.
Wow.
Everyone's mad, but mostly sad. And you said, but most don't fully believe it yet. I don't 100% know.
You're in denial.
And my immediate thought was like, it makes sense. All the girls that live there don't get married. They're like under this weird spell.
And it is interesting how I have another friend who lives in Oregon, And I have another friend who lives in Dallas, and anyone who doesn't live in Kansas City, they were quick to be like, "Dang, he did that." People who live in Kansas City were quick to be like, "Oh, this might be a false this might not be." We were all like, "No," but my
So
friend in
close to
Oregon
it.
was like, "Period, he did that." My friend in Dallas was like, "Did it." And you in New York, it's something in your spirit, not being in this physical place in Kansas City said, "Yeah, that adds up." So it is
Yeah.
interesting how even though I haven't been that deeply connected with IHOP in the past 5 years, how even still living in that close proximity, you're kinda like, it's just you're kind of under this umbrella even though I don't attend or I'm not a member for a
So
while.
when did you leave the church officially? But like when did you stop going to Forerunner?
I kinda tapered off going to the prayer room my last year of Bible college. And then I would always stream Forerunner because I did love the teachings and I thought they were very provoking and profound and deep. But regular attendance, it has to be a good 5 years. I started going to this other local church, um, for a while, then I would kind of bop around, and it wasn't a bitterness thing, it wasn't anything against the house of prayer. I was always that person who was like, "Hey, I don't go all the time because I'm in a shifted season, but I love the house of prayer. I loved my Bible college. I loved my experience. I loved all my wonderful friends, and I never I didn't like the raising support. I thought that that was absolutely insane. I still do. I don't think people should raise support. I think that the Lord has anointed us with creative ideas to have our own businesses and to generate income. I don't think that it's fair or biblical, honestly, to say, I'm going to sit before the Lord and bask in his presence all day while this person who works for Cerner or Google Fiber or has their own company pays for me to do that. Well, why isn't
Yeah.
that person before the Lord all day? Oh, it's not their calling. And I have an Anna calling. Anna was one person. One person was Anna. One. One lady. One lady was Anna. It doesn't mean there's a whole generation of Annas. And the fruit that I've seen from that perspective of IHOP is toxic. Toxic. People are in their 30s and 40s. They're broke. They are broke babies. So the poverty stuff at the end is what ultimately caused me to be like, this isn't for me. People would be like, I don't have my mortgage payment. Let's pray and ask God to like give it to me. And I'd be
Mhm.
like, and I would come from work to go to these prayer meetings and I'd be like, no, like I had to work to make my payment. So why? So you're just gonna get it delivered? No. And so I was like, I didn't want to get a critical spirit. I didn't want to get bitter. So I said, you know what? It's healthier for me to marinate in everything I learned and to kind of just go to a local church and work. And so it was never a huge contention, but I was just like, let me just come away a little bit. That stuff. It was just a different season for me. And
Yeah, right.
I, we have to pay our bills and work. And I also moved a little bit out of the area and into a different part of Kansas City. I saw people like, for example, Corey Asbury leave, take everything that he got, and then go do albums from that place of he had a foundation in prayer. He went albums and then he won awards. And I
Mhm.
saw people really thrive when they left, and I thought that that was encouraging and inspiring, and I really do think it's interesting that some people who are such, for lack of better words, OG IHOP are really quiet, and I do wonder
I
what
think
they.
I mean I'm sure they're going through their own trauma with all this.
Mhm.
And when the documentary comes out, I'm sure a few of them will be on the documentary.
It's disheartening. It's disheartening because everyone gave thousands of dollars. It's either thousands of dollars they paid, or thousands of dollars they could have made. They gave their whole hearts, and we're young. Let's not even talk about the fact that when I started Bible college, someone was recently murdered and it wasn't solved. I was so naive that I was like, "Oh, well, not for sure, but I'm just going to do my classes." And looking back on that now,
Side note, did you know Tibbet?
I did not know Tibbet.
Okay. Just
Never met Tibbet. That's
story for another episode.
that's upsetting to a lot of people that someone with that level of abuse towards children can't he couldn't work at a daycare, right? He couldn't work at a school. He couldn't be a teacher. So the fact that that somehow slid in and was overlooked, just either a very, very bad error and just very, very sloppy. I don't necessarily think it's super malicious. I don't think, "Oh, they're malicious. They let someone with this his on
Yeah.
purpose." I just think it
No.
goes to show that the way that IHOP does some things is not the spirit of excellence that they preach on. Having people raise
Mhm.
support versus get doing their God-given natural talents, that's not a spirit of excellence. That's a spirit of poverty.
Yeah. Yeah.
You and so I think that the thing that happened with Brad is, like, it's just sloppy. Like, someone should why didn't they do a background check? Why didn't someone say, "Hey, this is just totally not okay." Maybe if they had, you know, just different a different structure in place that was a bit more professional, that wouldn't have slid through the cracks.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
IHOP isn't professional. Let's be so for real. It's very spiritual. It's very charismatic. There's not that professional line. It's lead worship for 40 plus hours a week and we're going to give you a little. I mean, that's not that's not great. And, I say this very, very gently because I do think, Stace, that the Lord honors the purity of the hearts of the people who went to school there and who worshiped and served there. Like that can never be taken away
Yeah.
from. But I
Yeah.
think that the way that this whole thing has really deconstructed and broken down is another ode to not professional, not polished, not equipped, no structure. You can't just have a scandal. Okay, that person eventually gets banned from ever coming, and then the whole leadership team resigns. What? And that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Like, the people we trust the most just resign. I get it. This was probably very, very, very stressful for their mental health. That looks really suspicious. That looks insanely bad. If it was just Mike doing these aggressions against these precious women for the past 3 decades, and these leaders had no part, no hand, no wherewithal about it, they would be like, "That was him. That was wrong. That's devastating." But they're like, "Actually, we're going to." And it's just unfortunate. So, getting to the heart of the matter, it's
Anyways,
not
yeah.
what Mike did, and we kinda talked about this earlier when we were talking on the phone this morning. It's not just what Mike did because, um, that's a piece of it. It's also the way that it was handled that is causing trauma for people. It's 2 separate things. It's the way in which someone that we love, respected, trusted, loved his
Disappointed us. Yeah.
disappointed us, okay, but with humility, there are verses in the Bible that say, "It's better for you not to teach, you're gonna get a heavier rebuke." The being silent thing, it's giving coward. It's giving the statement was okay, but it was people weren't really pleased with that, and, I've thought about this a lot too. Something that really sticks out from my time at IHOP is Mike would always say, "It is better for God to expose you on this side of eternity than to expose you in heaven where it's too late," right? He always would say that. And
Like
I'd be
he
like,
knew.
yeah, I would be like, "You know what? Like, if you have sin, it's better to just confess it now, not hide it." And that always stuck with me. And then here we go, 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, Mike's fully being exposed. And he's not even embracing the exposure. He's not even saying, "Hey guys,
Sorry, guys. Yeah.
humbly, you know, I failed all of you.
Yeah.
I I am I mean, I think, we could go through a statement, "I morally failed, blah, blah, blah," but no one really felt from him or any of the other leaders that they were like there was never this moment This is the problem. There was never this moment where a leader went on stage and said, "Guys, we're devastated. Let's weep together. Let's like mourn this. We're all shocked. We're all traumatized.
Shut
We're
down the prayer room.
we're all our hearts are broken. Let's do a holy pause. Let's honor these women. Let's get to the bottom of it."
Yeah.
There as soon as there was a woman who said something, their response, and everyone on the leadership is responsible from this, from Mike all the way to the person who has the least authority. If a woman comes forth and says something like that, their response should have been their response should have been, "We're going to uncover and dig and turn over every single rock until we get to the truth."
And
Because
then
that
file a police report.
Yes, we are a house of prayer and justice. Justice. So we are going to turn everything over and bring justice. Girl, that is not what they did. That is not what they did. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is they went, "Hey, we're going to keep going. And you know what? Don't really pay too much attention to social media. Just going to take communion." And there was no grieving. There was no empathy. There was no
Well,
weeping.
they weren't really owning up to it. And we
Not at
can get
all. They
into the
just denied.
speculation of why that is. There are a lot of different ideas of why that is.
And I think this is what you're hinting at. It crosses over from like church to legal, right? So like
That and they signed NDAs. There's so much that we're gonna have to get into over the
so
next
it yeah,
episodes.
everything is wild. It's giving Netflix
Guilty?
10-part series
Yes.
true crime podcast NDAs. So that's where it gets in a really icky vein.
Yeah.
We signed NDAs, let's take communion together. So I found out about it. There was a meeting a week after on Halloween night, which is a very bizarre day to have a meeting. It was a Tuesday, not a normal day we would meet. And I remember Dave Sliker goes, "Hey guys, family, I've never been more excited to take communion than with you guys now." And I remember I went, "What the?" And I said the F word, and this girl was sitting next to me, and she goes, "I like you. Like, I like you." And I go, "I can't be here. This is icky in the spirit. This is mixture. Why are we congregating on Halloween night, for one, on a Tuesday?" And I remember I said, "I'm not taking communion with these people. I will not covenant myself more to IHOP. I will not take communion under this little weird spell." And I left. People were crying during that meeting. People were like, um, devastated and crying, like, "Wow, like, what the heck?" Like, people were they were still in that
Shock.
shock.
Yeah.
And I left, and then the next meeting they had was so that was a Tuesday, the next meeting they had was a Sunday. They go, "Hey, yeah, so guess what? We hired Stinson LLP." And that was just bomb. I do know someone who works for Stinson. I also know another girl's mom who works for Stinson, and it is a very, very aggressive law firm.
So with everything that's going on, where are you at now? And why do you think doing this podcast is important?
I think it's healthy to process. I think people are interested. I mean, we're only 3 months in, things are still developing. I think I told you earlier on the phone, I'm praying that something doesn't escalate to a more intense point. I mean, every day it's a movie. This happened. This happened. This happened. I don't have a heart of bitterness towards what is going on, so I'm not angry at IHOP, I'm not angry at the leaders, I'm not bitter, I'm not angry at all. I love Jesus, I trust God, but I wanna talk about it. I mean, it has affected me in Kansas City, and it has affected you, one of my, oldest, most beloved friends, all the way in New York, to the point where I do think about this every single day. And honestly, I think people would enjoy this content and this breakdown. I mean, there's so many little nuances to everything. And so I've lived here for over a decade, And I've seen firsthand, and it's not my heart to exaggerate anything. I have no ill will towards IHOP at all. Meaning I'm not trying to exaggerate. There's nothing for me to really. I just want to speak in basically my truth of what happened, and there's a lot to. It's interesting. It's interesting, and I think that I'm concerned for the hearts of people who will be like, I think a lot of people are really, really hurting right now because of this. And they're like,
Mhm.
can I
Mhm.
trust any type of movement ever? And anyone, I mean, several, I don't know if you know this girl, but several prominent worship leaders have left. Youth
I'm
pastors have
sure.
resigned a lot, a lot. And
I'm
so there's
sure.
no way that they could say, even if they move to a new city, get a great job, at a different church, there's no way that anyone could say, "Hey, this isn't a wound." It's a wound for me, and I haven't even really fully gone there in 5 years. IHOP touched something very, very deep in our spirit, and that level of betrayal from the leader and the leadership team is it's really beyond words. It's really beyond words, and I don't say that without love for everyone involved.
We want to process this with other people that either come from, anywhere, any walk, but the people that were there, people that would understand all of your perspective, and I'm sure they're going to know everything that you're talking about. And then people that were on the other side who are just kind of looking in, for me, listening to the music, going to one thing, but not ever going to school there. And how this is just even unraveling.
And I think it's so interesting how it affects you to the point where you do your own research. You're an entrepreneur, you have a business, you have a baby, you have a husband, you're a successful, beautiful, God-loving woman. And it's interesting how it even touches something inside of you that you research it in New York. It has a reverb. I mean, it's weighty, and I that's why I do tread lightly. I don't come in, a spirit of pride or arrogance, nothing like that. It's just like, whoa. From my view of the car wreck, the train wreck, this is what I've seen. This is what I've saw, and we're still in the middle of it. In the middle.
And we
I
have so many more details to just share about what
Yes,
you've experienced, what you've seen. Leave questions or your comments or your experiences
anything,
in the comments.
anything.
And please follow, like, and subscribe.